Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Metal Shop. Today, based on the success of the Floyd Rose myth busting, I'm going to do some general guitar myths busting. A little bit of Floyd Rose content, but and one of the underlying themes of today that will, recurring theme is guitar manufacturers do not install things on guitars that they don't need to. Okay, everything that is installed on a guitar has a cost, and if they can leave it off, they will. All right, so let's get started with a few weeks ago I watched a video, and it's about the Floyd Rose string retainer here. Okay, and is it necessary or is it not necessary? And this video's probably got 100,000 views by now. This guy's got a big channel, lots and lots of subscribers. And he installed one of these on a guitar that didn't come with one, and it didn't need one, okay? The retainer bar is necessary on a guitar with a Strat style headstock, and it's not the shape of the headstock, okay? It is the angle of the headstock. And this guitar there's no angle. The headstock is not angled back. It's a typical Fender style. It dips down, and that dip requires the retainer here to pull those strings down. So essentially what's happening is when you clamp down the locking clamp here, it's not now pushing the strings down. The retainer bar is holding the strings in a set position so that when you clamp this, they're not all going, like way sharp. It's completely necessary. Now, and also bear in mind, the Floyd Rose was invented and intended for installing on Stratocaster guitars, okay? It was retrofitting the Fender vintage style Trem on Fender guitars, and the same with the locking clamp and the retainer bar assembly, intended design for Fenders. Pulls those strings down, puts it on that plane. Now when we're locking our clamps, it's not now pulling the strings sharp, okay? Here we have a Jackson pointy headstock here, and Jacksons and Gibson utilize a tilt back headstock design. Okay, you can see that there. The headstock itself is tilted back, therefore the string retainer is not necessary on a tilt back headstock. A Gibson, a Jackson, ESP, Ibanez, whatever it is, if it has a tilt back headstock, you don't need the string retainer, because the tilt takes care of moving those strings down at an angle so that now when we're locking our locking clamp, it's not now pulling those strings sharp. Again, completely unnecessary. Now, it should mention that the first handful, it may be several hundred even, Jackson guitars, when they switched to the, probably not a few hundred, but few, when they switched to the angled headstock, still came with a retainer bar, and they quickly realized that it wasn't necessary, and they left it off, because that retainer bar probably cost them, even in those days in the 80s, $4 or $5 a unit. And that's a lot of savings if you're not using it, if you're not installing it, because you don't need to. And this video, this famous video that this famous YouTube channel, he installed a bar, and it was on a Jackson. It was on a, you can figure it out. You can, you guys in the know, it was on an import Jackson, and it was completely unnecessary. And this guy went so as far as to, he put barely enough windings on the peg head to bring the string up so that when he clamped down the locking clamp, it would pull the string sharp. Okay? You just need to bear in mind that a lot of videos on YouTube are, they're like reality TV. They're making a video for the sake of making a video and getting views and getting the money for those views, okay? So it's like the whole thing was a setup. Not enough windings, brought the strings way up. Oh, and lo and behold, now when I clamp my clamps, it's pulling the string sharp. I need to install one of these retainer bars. You should try it for yourself. No, don't bother. Waste of time. You have a tilt back headstock. You do not require a retaining bar. You have a Strat style, Tele style headstock like that is not a non-tilt back headstock. The retaining bar is required. That is myth number 1, busted. All right. Myth number 2, solid mounted pickups. All right. It's like people actually say, guitar players, we're a funny bunch, all of us. They say the tiniest little things that you do affect your sound when they really don't. You can't hear it. It's a bunch of, it's gobbledygook. It really is. And players that are saying that a solidly mounted pickup sounds better or is better than a pickup that is suspended in a pick guard or on by a pickup ring with springs. Now, granted, it may sound different. It may. I don't even own a guitar with a solid mounted pickup because to me, it's a gimmick. It's just nonsense, okay? Why did we ever start installing pickups solidly mounted to a guitar? And I can tell you why. It's one guy, it's Eddie Van Halen, okay? And when Eddie Van Halen went to put a humbucker in his Stratocaster, it wouldn't fit, and he's just a kid. He doesn't know any better. Gets out the chisels, hammer and a chisel, and he chisels enough room to put the humbucker in the Strat. And then what is he going to do? How's he going to mount it? There isn't a pick guard made to accommodate a humbucker there, and he just wants to get it done. Same reason why he twists it so that, the Gibson pickup that he now puts underneath his Fender Trem, the pole pieces will line up. He's like, he nailed it in place with actual nails. He used nails to hold the thing down, okay? And there is why we have direct mounted pickups. I'm not sure who did it first. I mean, Eddie Van Halen clearly did it first, but which manufacturer did it first? I believe ESP, some of the George Lynch guitars, those are the first ones that I can remember. Hit me up in the comments if you know who was the first to direct mount a pickup. But I will tell you this, again, guitar manufacturers do things for a reason, okay? Why did Leo Fender mount his pickups with surgical tubing? And part of the reason is so that the pickup height is now adjustable, which is that infinitely affects your sound. Closer to the strings, further away from the strings, you can dial in your sound. There's really no right or wrong answer. There's factory specs, but you can infinitely change your sound by that. That alone is a reason why you should not direct mount a pickup. Now you've completely limited. It only goes in one spot. It can't go up. It can't go down. But the other reason is, now these guys are engineers. Seth Lover, Leo Fender's got engineers working for him. And what is your pickup? Your pickup is a microphone. It's picking up the signal from your strings, transmitting it to your amplifier, okay? What do you not want? What are you trying to avoid? Why do we pot these pickups? Do you know why they wax pot these pickups? So that the windings don't vibrate and cause feedback, okay? You don't want the windings to vibrate. Why on earth do you now want to permanently static mount your pickup to your guitar? Now it's going to vibrate with the guitar and transmit that energy through your microphone and give you increased feedback. That's the secondary reason they wanted to adjust the height, but they wanted to isolate the pickup with springs, with surgical tubing to counter that vibration from transmitting through your microphone to the amplifier and causing feedbacks, okay? I'm not an engineer. This is just my 40 plus years of experience talking here. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you prefer the sound. I'm not going to do a sound demo back and forth between, hard mounted pickups versus mounted on a pick guard or mounted with a pickup ring. That's for a different time, for a different video, okay? I don't believe in it. To me, it's a gimmick. I don't like the look of it. It looks unfinished. A lot of people prefer it, and I think that's what it is. We judge things in a 3-tiered system, okay? The first thing we do is we look at it. We see it with our eyes. And if you look at that and you like the way that looks, oh, that's pleasing. I like the way that looks. Then we touch it. We try and feel it, okay? And we're like, it's tactile response is next. Maybe we strum the strings, we twist the knobs, we do whatever. It's third, and it's a distant third where we actually play it and let our ears judge how we feel about it. Most people do that. They like the pickups like that because they feel it's aesthetically pleasing. To me, it's horrid and ugly, but I'm a traditionalist. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't, but saying that this is better, it's not better. It's different. There's really no scientific engineering reason for doing this. It's just something that we picked up from Eddie Van Halen and something that we do for aesthetics. Better, worse, you be the judge. Myth busted. Myth number 3. 3, like the Germans, Europeans do. This one's gaining a lot of traction these days, and that is people are saying that the Gotoh 1996T is better than the Floyd Rose. The venerable Floyd Rose design been around since the late 70s, early 80s. They're saying that this trem is better. Now, it's different. I'll give you that. It has several design features that are different than the Floyd Rose, and you could say that it made improvements, or you could say there's just differences. It's up to the end user if he feels that it's actually an improvement and it's actually better, okay? The one thing that I love that just kills me is the Gotoh has a brass sustain block. Ooh, brass. We all know how the bell brass provides that unbelievable clear tone, okay? So this one already has a big block, so that's kind of a poor example here. This is a real Floyd Rose block taken right off of Floyd Rose. Do you know what it's made out of? Made out of brass. Every single Floyd Rose comes with a brass spring block. It's nickel plated, that's all. And again, why did they nickel plate it? I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's a reason for it, because that was the cost. That cost per unit, Floyd Rose did that for a reason, but it's still brass. It's the same. Gotoh decided to not nickel plate theirs for whatever their reasoning may be. Better? No, it's exactly the same. Okay, Gotoh did this nifty little thing here where the springs go in. Well, these 3, which are the ones that are traditionally used. There's a nice little machine screw that you can bolt in after your spring to hold that in place. That's kind of nice. I admit that's a nice little feature. Is it an upgrade? I guess you could call it an upgrade. To me, it's kind of gimmicky. Is it necessary? No. I've never had the springs pop out of a Floyd Rose. Any Floyd Rose. The only time I've ever had the springs come out is when I've taken the strings off, and now my fulcrum is at a whack because I don't have equivalent tension from the springs to the strings, and then your springs will fall out. But I've never had it happen when the guitar was strung up in playing position, even under the most severe use. Never have I had that happen. But it's nice. It's different, okay? These little fingers here, the spring fingers, the Gotoh here has these nifty little notches cut into them so that they ride right on your saddle screws. That's kind of nice. Does it do anything? Does it serve any purpose? Not really. I've never had them fall off or, go to the side. They're bigger. That's kind of nice. See how they're wider? The fingers are wider. This is about the same width, but it gets wider here at the top. Has that little notch. That's nice. Make a difference? I don't know. Again, better? No, different. All right, on to the top here. Our fine tuners on the Gotoh, they're angled back. That's nice. Some players think that the fine tuners on the Floyd get in the way. They don't like the position. Namely, one Steve Vai preferred the fine tuners to be angled out of the way. So, better? Does it function better like this? No, different. The saddles. The saddles have a nice kind of rounded bevel on the top of them. It's nice. Does it feel better on my hand here? A little bit. Again, different. The saddles themselves, the Gotoh has these angles cut into the saddles, whereas the Floyd is much more L-shaped, the way it's been forever. Is that better? Does it make it stronger? No. It doesn't. It's different. I'm not sure what the purpose of it is. This is much more to me like an Ibanez trem. Gotoh coincidentally makes the Ibanez edge trems. So again, better? No. Different. Okay, the arm. The arm slides in here, and there's a little set screw in the back where you can adjust your tension so that your arm can swing freely, or you can put a bunch more tension in it so that it won't swing at all, or it will swing, you can set it where you want. That's pretty nice. And I have to admit that there's no slop in this bar whatsoever. None. That's nice. And a lot of players like that. They want that positive feel. They don't want any slop in there whatsoever. They want none. Now this is an old style screw-in arm, and you have to admit it will rock just a tiny little bit there, but this isn't how it's designed. It's not what its design is, and it's tough to see, is you see those nylon washers? The idea is that the bar is supposed to be mounted very, very tightly in the assembly, and the entire unit, this is supposed to spin, this is supposed to spin on those washers, the entire unit. So again, it will also have no slop. I prefer mine to swing, like Eddie Van Halen famously is the one who did this the most, and it's got that tiny little bit of slop. I don't mind, but I've been playing it like this for 40 years. Again, is it better? It depends on what you want. If you want that positive bar, then this is better. If you don't, then it's really not. Okay? I prefer this. I prefer my bar to swing. I prefer the screw-in bar to the collared bar. I don't use those collared bars. So, what else? Finally, there's this. The cutout here instead of the rounded knife edges. And do you know why they do this? And what I initially thought was, oh, that's ease of installation. Because sometimes the route in your guitar body, sometimes the route is so narrow that you can't get your tremolo to drop in without removing one of your posts. So this would take care of that. You'd always be able to get it in. But the real reason that they did that is for tolerances. Because now only one has to be perfect, and it can slide back and forth on that flat edge, and there's a much greater tolerance with that flat edge for side-to-side movement. Is it better? It's certainly easier than mounting a Floyd in a very tight cavity, okay? Again, and now the piece de resistance of the difference here, because you're getting a lot of people saying that this is made from better steel. It's better. It's harder. And to that, yeah, not really. It's really not. And I'm not a metallurgist. All I know is that Floyd's from the early 80s are still in use today. They're indestructible. The knife edges never, ever wear out. I can't say the same about these. I just don't know. These became, the first time I ever saw these in any use was on the Ernie Ball Music Man guitars, the Eddie Van Halen guitars, and that's only to the 90s, so say, 10, 12 years less than the Floyd. So I'm like, where is everyone getting this? Where is everybody getting that this is made of better steel than this? So I go to the internet and I start doing searches, and I can see, do you know what it is, ladies and gentlemen, guitar players of all ages? It's AI. AI will tell you, depending on how you pose the question, that this is made of better steel than this. But if you pose the question a different way, like if you say, why is the steel on a Floyd Rose better than on a Gotoh, then you'll get your answer skewed that way. If you ask, why is the Gotoh better than the Floyd Rose, then you'll get the answer that way. And a lot of this goes to Japanese manufacturer versus German manufacturer. And there's a general rule that Japanese steel is harder than German steel. It has a higher carbon content in it, and it's harder. But here's the thing that you don't want. You want it to be hard. You want it to have a certain hardness and a certain wear factor, but you don't want it to be too hard, because then what you're going to get is you're going to get micro fractures, which are tiny little cracks and tiny little chips that you almost can't see with the naked eye, and that's when your knife edges wear out, okay? I called Floyd Rose to talk about some of their radius saddles, and I asked the question, and I can't remember the guy's name. I wish I'd written down. I want to say it's Steven, but it's probably not. I'm really bad at remembering names, and I should have written this down. I said, hey, a lot of people are saying that the Gotoh steel on the base plate and the saddles is better than on the Floyd Rose. He laughed. He laughed right in my face. He's like, yeah, no. He's like, we've been using the same forged steel, tool steel, since the 80s. And he said, and what it is he said, he said, I can't vouch for what other manufacturers use. He said, but the makeup of the steel that we use is perfect for the Floyd Rose. And he said he made some wisecracks about Ginsu knives, and we're not making samurai swords. And he said the knife edge, he said, it's not really a knife. It's not sharp like a knife edge. He said, if you look at it, it said it's actually quite blunt. He said, but the metal, the forged steel that we use in the Floyds, he said, is perfect for us. He said, it's not too hard. He said, it's certainly not soft. And he said, and it wears forever. He said, they literally, and I've been saying this for years, and he echoed my almost exact words. He said, it will literally never wear out. And I can't say the same for this. It's unknown. Don't know. Other thing, the last factor, this is cheaper, okay? All things being equal, a gold Floyd Rose is going to run you about $300, a black Floyd Rose about $275, a chrome one around $250. This black Floyd Rose is about $200. Gold is about the same. You can get these for $150 to $200 brand new. They're on average about $100 cheaper than the Floyd Rose. That's the final factor. Is it better? Is it worse? I don't know. It's different. And if you prefer some of the features that this one has, then by all means use it. This is a very good Trem. But I would never say that it's better than the Floyd Rose. Look, it copies. It used to have to say licensed under Floyd Rose patents here. They don't have to say that anymore. The patents ran out. But this doesn't exist without this. And I do not view this as an evolution of the Floyd. It's just different. Okay? Cool. Oh, and I included the thumbnail. There was a picture of the 3 springs. That's from a very early, very early Floyd Rose literature from the early 80s, like 84, 85, showing the 3 springs, because that's a myth we busted last time. And if you look at this, look at how they want you to arrange your springs. 1, 2, 3. Now, they're not saying to angle them, but they're not saying run 4 springs, run 5 springs. They're saying run 3 springs. And that lends itself towards exactly what I'm saying here. 3 springs in the diagonal pattern gives you some really nice feel. Okay? All right. We'll pull back out the Floyd. And I want to say just a couple words about FU Tone and other manufacturers that are marketing you titanium and other precious metals in your Trem. Is it better? No. Is it worse? I wouldn't say that either. It's different, okay? People will say titanium is an upgrade because they think that titanium is this space-aged metal, okay? It's used in aircraft. It's used in aerospace. If you're making an exhaust, you make it with titanium. It's beautiful, okay? But if you, and just Google this yourself. Use that AI that I mentioned and Google it yourself. Titanium doesn't have as good a wear characteristic as forged steel. It wears out quicker. It's not as strong as forged steel. That's why if a base plate out of titanium, you're going to get those micro fractures and the micro chips in it long before you will in the steel. Now, I'm not saying titanium will wear out, but it's going to wear out quicker than forged steel, okay? Titanium blocks. Is it better? It's lighter. Titanium is lighter. You cannot take that away. It's lighter, okay? In the block, is it better to have titanium? Do you want lighter? Do you want heavier? Will it change your tone? I believe it will. Is it better? Is it worse? That's up to you. That's a judgment. Let your ears decide that. But I know this, I don't have any titanium. I don't believe in Floyd. I believe in Floyd Rose. I don't believe in Floyd upgrades. Floyd upgrades to me, and sorry, it used to be Floyd upgrades, but they couldn't. They're forced to change their name. They got a cease and desist and change their name to FU Tone. That's kind of funny. FU Tone, Floyd upgrades tone. Again, the titanium. It's lighter. Will it change your sound? I'm sure it will. Is it for the better? To my ears, it's not. Okay? You listen to famous players with recordings that are using the titanium. Phil Collen from Def Leppard being one of the most well-known. And to me, his tone is harsh. It's brittle. It's sharp. It's not pleasing to my ears. And to me, that's the sound of titanium. You want titanium on your locking clamp. You know, you want titanium on your saddles. So you're stretching your strings between this titanium, a titanium block. If you like harsh, brittle, sharp tone, to my ears, then go for the titanium. But people are telling you that you should upgrade to titanium. It's a gimmick, okay? They're selling you stuff that you don't need. Now, it's cool. FU Tone is brilliant, and they market it. You get different colored saddle screws, different colored fine tuners, different colored inserts, different colored set screws, different colored blocks for your locking clamps. You know, different colored screws up here. All these different things, and that's cool. You want to get that stuff. You want to, you know, accessorize your guitar with those colors. Cool. More power to you. That's great. I'm not. That's, to me, it's gimmicky, but don't pay more for the titanium. Last thing about FU Tone is, where's their stuff made? You can't find any of that on the website where their products are made, and very importantly, what grade is the titanium that they are using, because there's many different grades, and I suspect that the FU Tone titanium is made in China, and the grade isn't as good a grade as titanium as you would think it is, okay? Again, that's a guess. A lot of this, it's not fact. I don't know, because they don't say. It doesn't say on their website, made in the USA. It doesn't say made in Germany. It doesn't say made in China. It doesn't say. And that means the stuff very likely is being produced offshore very cheaply, and you don't know what you're getting. Is it an upgrade? I don't think it's an upgrade. Again, it's different. Will it change your tone? I believe it absolutely will. Better? I don't think so. Worse? Yes, I think so. Try it for yourself, and you tell me. Do you think it makes your tone better? Do you think it makes your tone worse? Do you believe in it at all? Okay? Your mileage may vary. All right? So I believe we're on to 1, 2, 3, myth 4, maybe? We'll figure it out. The recessed trem. This isn't really a myth, but it's just kind of like a general discussion. I don't like recessed trems, okay? From about 1987 through the early 2000s, this was the industry standard. This was all that you could get. Very difficult to find a top-mounted Floyd Rose or a non-recessed Floyd Rose. And who do we have to thank for that? One guy, Steve Vai. Okay, now this is purely for function, okay? This is so that you can, you know, this guitar is horribly out of tune. I use it as a display. But you can bring the thing up, you know, almost 2 full steps. And the thing that I didn't like about a recessed trem was that they sunk it down flush into the body. Okay? And what they did was they effectively cut the distance between your strings and the pickups down to almost nothing, where you really don't have very much room to play in there. And depending on your playing style, they've really now hindered how that works. Having room to dig in with a pick, and your pick is hitting the pick guard, it's hitting the guitar, because they've lowered this thing down into the body. when they very first started recessing Trems, they cut the cavity, but the neck angles were such that the tremolo was still sitting above the guitar. And there are still some manufacturers that do that today. I have a picture of a very new Jackson that has a recessed trem, but the base plate sits above the body. And I'll insert a picture of that here. And that's not bad. That kind of takes care of leaving it flush mount, kind of like the Van Halen mount, and a steeper neck angle. Now you have more room in here to pick, okay? But the thing that I don't like the most is the only points of contact now on a recessed trem are here and here. That's the only place it's touching. I like a trem, I like the Van Halen mount, where it's sitting flush on the top of the guitar. You have tons of point of contact, and you're transmitting that vibration through the guitar and out the signal to your amp. That's what I like. Doing it like this, again, is it better? No, it's absolutely not better. This is for function only. You want as much in contact with the wood as possible. Again, my opinion. Your mileage may vary, but I want my trem sitting flush on the body, sending all those vibrations throughout the guitar, okay? And I'll just say this as a point of fact, two of the best sounding guitars that I've ever owned. One was, it was an Asian-made Telecaster. It had a Tele-style bridge, but the strings went all the way through the body. And that guitar, it rang like a bell. It was just, I don't know why I ever got rid of it. One of the best sounding guitars I own. Another one of the best sounding guitars I owned was a Jackson Rhodes. Had a Tune-o-matic, but after the Tune-o-matic, the strings went through that body. And again, that guitar sounded fantastic. Now, when you're using a Floyd, does things like that matter? It's already a huge compromise. I mean, you're cutting the strings off and clamping them in here, but you want every advantage that you can get. And to me, having that trem touching the body, not just resting on these two posts, is better than this giant swimming pool cavity here underneath the tremolo. To me, this is no good. And seriously, why did we do this? It was Steve Vai. Steve Vai wanted this. He wanted the trem sunk into the guitar. He wanted this routed out so he could pull back. You remember he used to have those pieces of plastic pickguard and stuff to raise his hand where it was sitting when the tremolo was flush mounted like that. It's him, and it became the industry standard. Somewhere in the early 2000s, manufacturers realized that people liked the top-mounted trems, or even sitting up off the face of the guitar. You could still go back and forth, but you didn't have to remove all of this wood around the guitar body. And again, this is not really a myth. It's just a discussion. I don't like this. Maybe you like this for functionality, but this is not great for tone, in my opinion. This is the only guitar I own with a recessed trem, and that's just because I use it static in a Jeff Beck type of display hanging on my wall. I don't really play this guitar. All right, again, your mileage may vary. You may love the recessed trem. Please let me know in the comments if you love a recessed trem and your thoughts on it. To me, this is purely for function and takes away from the tone of your instrument. Okay? Myth number 5, the dreaded Neckplate gasket, or shim, or whatever you want to call this thing right here. Do we need it? Do we not need it? And again, this goes back to what I said at the beginning here. The theme is guitar manufacturers don't install anything on the guitar that they can get away with leaving off. These things, even to Fender, these things probably cost, 30, 40, 50 cents a unit, maybe as much as $1. I don't know. But if you're Fender and you're making, hundreds and thousands of guitars a year, if you could just leave this thing out, then you would. Why do we have this? Is it necessary? Fender began installing these, CBS era Fenders began installing these in the late 60s, I believe. And what they said at the time was it was used to protect the finish in mass-produced instruments. Probably they were being put out too quickly and the finish wasn't cured, and that's what this is for. Okay, I've seen guys say, what do I want this piece of plastic for? It's going to squish, it's going to compress, it's going to do whatever. That's complete hogwash. That's a myth we're going to bust right now. All right, out of these three things, your guitar body, this gasket, this neck plate, do you know which compresses the least? Can you guess? That's right, it's this. Number one is the body. It's made of wood. Of course, that's going to give and it's going to compress, and that's what both of these are designed to combat. This will compress and it will deform. It's steel, it's metal, it has holes in it, and when you crank these screws down, what can happen is the metal can pucker out almost like a volcano here. The corners can bend. I've seen it. You guys have seen it. Look at old Fender guitars, old Charvels from the 80s. These things will deform, okay? And when it deforms, what does it do? It goes right into the wood, deforms into the wood. You get a loose neck joint, and that's not what you want. What you want, what both of these things are designed for, is the joint between the neck and the body. That's what you want. This has not very much effect on that. This is the joint you want to be tight. This is your washer, your shim, okay? And this isn't gonna, it's not dampening any vibration. It doesn't compress. What this does is it's protecting the body, and it's protecting this metal plate from deforming, and now you're losing that nice tight joint between your neck and your body. This, just leave this in. This is a necessary piece. They put this on here for a reason. Protects your guitar body, protects your plate, and makes for a very nice tight neck joint, okay? That's all. Guitar manufacturers don't just put junk on there for no reason that costs the money. This thing has a design, it has a function, it has a purpose. Leave it in place, all right? All right, my friends, and that's the final myth that we're trying to bust here today. And again, most of this stuff today is just based on my 40 years of experience. You may have completely different experiences, and I welcome constructive criticism and dissenting opinions, differing opinions in the comments. Please hit me up and we can have a discussion about it. If you feel that something I've said that you disagree with, you've had different experiences, I completely welcome it, as long as you're constructive and not toxic in the comments, and, you know, no trolls, all right? So, as always, my friends, I truly appreciate your support. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. Please give me the thumbs up. Click subscribe if you are not a subscriber already. I'm trying to crank out about one video a week. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but I am trying. And I truly do appreciate your support. I appreciate the view. Please hit me up in the comments. And please subscribe. Please give me that thumbs up. One last thing. Please stay tuned. I do have a very short little editorial comment. And if you've made it this far, listen to me yap on and on about these guitar myths, then you're going to really appreciate this, this little editorial commentary video that I've put at the end of this video. All right, my friends, take care. Bye-bye. All right, my friends, if you stuck with me for this long throughout the duration of this video for this little postscript, this little editorial rant, I truly appreciate your support and unwavering dedication. And what I wanted to talk about, just very briefly, I'll try and be brief, is the many groups, the forums. They're not forums anymore, the groups, the Facebook groups. I've become a member of a few of them. Floyd Rose users, Charvel guitars, things of that nature. And there's a lot of very uninformed, ignorant people on these groups, to put it plainly, and they feel entitled, they feel that their opinion matters and that they have a right to be heard, and they feel like they're competent and informed enough to give you advice when they're not, and not even close. And you need to be able to sift through the comments when you go and ask a question as to who is telling you straight, who's giving you good advice, and the people out there that are just talking out their butts by the seat of their pants, and they really have no clue what they're talking about. And you get so many unhelpful comments. There was a guy who wanted to make his Floyd Rose do the warble. He was having problems setting it up. And someone says, the exact quote was, "Vega Trem, game over." And it's like, he's just asking for help setting up his Floyd Rose. He doesn't want to go out and buy a Vega Trem, which won't drop right in, isn't an exact fit, just going to end up costing him more money. Another guy was having some issues. He had an Asian-made EVH Wolfgang he was having some issues with. And another guy just comments, "EBM's still a better guitar, though." Okay, great. That's great. Thank you for having your opinion heard. And last but not least, I want to use this as an example of the type of help that you're getting on these user groups. And there was a guy who, he has a Charvel SoCal, and he wanted to put a brass big block in it. And he wanted to know what size. Well, common knowledge, if you know anything about guitars and you're a Charvel guy and a Floyd guy, it's a recessed trem, and we know that a recessed trem takes a 32 millimeter sustain block. That's just the one. That's just the one that fits. You can squeeze a 37 if your tremolo sits, even if it's recessed, if it sits above the guitar a little bit, or it's a flush mount, it can take a 37. All right. And most people in the comments were very good. You need a 32, you need a 32, you need a 32. There are a couple of 37s thrown in there. And this one guy said, "Well, I just put a 42 in, works great. You should do that." And I was just commented, "That's wrong. That's incorrect. It's wrong. It will not fit." And I provided, silly me, I actually measured the width of a standard Charvel body, 1.75 inches, 45 millimeters, and Floyd Rose with a 42 millimeter sustain block, plus the width of the shim, the spring tension plate in here, and the width of the base plate here is a whopping 47 millimeters. It won't fit. 42 won't fit in a guitar with a recessed tremolo. And the guy just roasts me. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. I did it. Works fine. I'm like, it's going to stick out the back of the guitar. I said, it will function. I said, you can't put your plate on. You don't need the plate. Doesn't really matter. But your springs they're going to be at a horrible angle. It's not designed that way. It's just not going to work. Like I said, this guy, particularly shining example of someone who's never been wrong in their life and knows everything, sends me a picture, and sure enough, sticks out the back of the guitar. And I'll insert pictures here. It sticks out the back of the guitar, and his springs are bent. They got to go down, then they got to go up. They're like an S. It's not designed to function like that. And he's like, "Proved you wrong. It works." And I'm like, okay, it works. I could put 4 donut spares on my car. It will still work. It will function, but it's not right. It's not correct. And then I realize I'm checking this guy, and I remember a thread from 2 weeks previously when he's working on his own guitar, and he's clearly a novice at this, and he wants to put a 42 millimeter big block on his guitar, the aforementioned one that he did, and he comes and asks for advice. Okay? Now bear in mind, there were 100 comments, 100, before he shut them off. And every single one of them said that you have the wrong block on, and his springs were popping off. He had it on backwards. Okay? So he's not very knowledgeable in using a Floyd Rose. I mean, putting it on backwards, we've all had to start. We all had to learn somewhere. The 42 millimeter block, he had to have that one, the big one, for all the sustain. But there were 100 comments telling him, it's on backwards, your block's too tall, your block's too tall, your block's too tall, it's too tall, it's the wrong block, wrong block, wrong block. 100 comments. He ends up disabling the comments, okay? But he does show in the comments that he finally undoes, takes it all apart, switches it around, and now his springs will stay in, but it's still too long, and they're doing the S curve, and it's just not going to ever function properly like that. But what I also noticed when he showed the picture of him fixing the trem block, spinning it around, all his saddles were in a heap off to the side, and I'll show you a picture of that too. So he didn't even know that, you know, the saddles are graduated in height and that there's a, you know, there's a radius built in there, and that's fine. Again, we all had to learn somewhere. This same guy asked a question about soldering, and he had gobs of seagull excrement looking solder that he was trying to put on this guitar, and it was awful. I mean, it was horrible, and I'll put a picture in of that. Again, I haven't been soldering forever. My soldering's not the cleanest ever. It certainly doesn't look like a factory OEM guitar, but I do a good job, and it's neat, and it functions. And again, we all had to learn somewhere. And why am I dogging on this guy so hard? The only reason that I am is that you don't know what you're doing, yet you feel qualified to give bad advice to people. This is the type of person, this person who can't solder, puts the wrong block on his guitar, installs it backwards, and then digs his heels in and struts like the cock of the walk and says, "I'm right, see, it worked." That's the type of person that you're taking advice from, okay? And don't give advice unless you know what you're talking about. If you don't know the answer, don't say anything, or say that you don't know. That's all. Don't give bad advice. And if you're taking advice from these groups, just bear in mind that there's a lot of clowns out there. They really don't have a clue what they're talking about. And this is just a shining example of the type of idiocy that you have to wade through to get some good advice. Again, I'm no expert, but I have 40 years of experience. And if I tell you something, you can take it to the bank. It's good advice. I'm here to help. And that's it. That's all there is to it. If I don't know, I'll look it up and find the answer for you, or I won't say anything. All right, my friends? That's all. Rant over. I'll get off my soapbox now. I had to get this off my chest. Thank you so much for listening. But again, take all advice that you get on these internet forums, these groups, with a grain of salt. Do your due diligence and figure out who is giving you the good advice. All right? Cool. Take care. Bye-bye.